Hey everyone, it's Jeannie from A1, and I am getting ready to piece together the borders so that we can quilt them in our sew along. And so what you need is, I just spent the last 15 minutes tearing my sewing room apart looking for my chain piece cutter, which I couldn't find. I will just cut them with my scissors. So there's your page. This is page number 35. You should have cut these, like a lot of times when I'm cutting my pieces, I don't worry if they're perfect or not. But when you have things like border pieces, you want them to be pretty perfect. We're just going to lay them out this in order, and then I'm going to sew together pairs, and then I'll cut those chain pieces apart, and then I'll sew the next 4 together. So let's go ahead and put these together. You're also going to need these. I am not doing this where I'm going to quilt these separately. I am going to piece together these borders, and then I'm going to sew the inner border onto them, and then I will do the quilting. Usually I have more time to prepare and think about all of this, but my kids were home for spring break, and I couldn't even get in my sewing room. This became one of the kids' rooms. All right, so let's lay it out. So we're going to start off with, and don't forget, there is a note here. Be sure that the 4 B pieces are at the ends of the row. So like 1B, and that's going to be a little bit smaller. The 1B piece is, where does it say? Where does it say? I think the 1B pieces are the 5 3/4 inch pieces. Do you like this? Me leading you on this journey of not totally knowing. Okay, so B, here we go. The B piece, if we're doing block by block, standard size. Okay, because I'm doing this where I'm semi doing block by block. Because I will do a tack down to hold it down, but I am not doing this row in, which is going to be separate from the inner border. So I'm going to leave it. I could have cut it to this size, because we are going to be trimming it down after quilting. Trim the border to a width of 3.5 inches, but we're just going to go ahead and do it like this, and then we'll trim off what we have to trim off on the border and then the inner border to make sure everything fits. So I'm going to just sew it together at the larger sizes, because I cut them to the larger sizes, and then we'll trim it afterwards before we after we quilt it. Hopefully that's going to make sense to you. Or you know what? We might do it before. Sorry, I just so you know, I don't do these beforehand. I do them as I'm going. And sometimes there's some thinking, and I change it a little bit. So there might be thinking on the fly is what I'm going to say. So we are going to go ahead and sew these together, because the width of them is going to stay the same anyways, regardless. This way, they're going to stay the same. It's really the height of them that we're going to be trimming down. So let's go ahead and put it in order, and we are going to have, and the whole reason I went to that page to find out what the 1B was, and the 1B is going to be the 4 or the 5 3/4 by 4. 5 3/4 by 4. So the biggest ones are going to be on the ends, and then all the rest of them should be the same size. So I'm going to lay these down, and then we have a plaid, yellow plaid. We have orange flower, pink floral doodle, solid lime green, solid lime green, gray dot. Oh, that's a big one. And then I am using the chicks. You're either going to have the chicks or the bumblebees. So I'm using the little chicks. If you got the kits from us, some of them have the chicks in it. I just think the chicks are so cute. I love the bumblebees too, though. Bumblebees are cute. Newer kits will all have bumblebees because we have that back in stock. And I really like to do the kits with the fabric that it calls for. And then I should have a big floral, one of the long ones. That's going to be the 5 3/4. Do I have a ruler over here? Let's just measure. Make sure I didn't go crazy. 5 and... because it looks big. Yeah, 5 3/4. Okay, that's row 1. Let's do the second row. That's going to be the top row. Bottom row is going to be the large one of these. There we go. That's called Sparkle. And then we have Pretty Petals Green. That fabric has been hard to get my hands on. 5 in the Kimberbell or, oh, I cut this twice. Okay, here's the chicks. Thought I didn't have it, so I cut it again. That's, I can't remember what that one's called. And then we need the plaid. The pink doodle. Better to have more than not enough, right? And the orange, Pretty Petals. The lime. And then we should have another large. Or our first large one. Okay, we're ready to piece. Let's go. I have in my machine a 8012 Microtex needle. And what I'm set up with right here is going to be my iron. I have my clappers and I use my best press. Although if you've best pressed once, you really don't need it again unless you're super anal just like me. And so I'm going to be best pressing twice. So we're going to go ahead and stitch away. And I'm just going to, let me put these over here in front of me. Let's set up our machine. Personally, I like to piece at stitch 103, which is center straight stitch. I like to piece at a 1.8 because I chain piece and I cut in between. And I'm just going to leave it just like this. I'm using my dual feed foot with my 1/4 inch sole. There's my 1/4 inch flange. I'm a flange girl. I know a lot of people like to use something that doesn't have a flange on it. As far as my thread goes, I'm using Decobob. Dove Gray is my favorite color. This is an 80 weight cottonized polyester. I like thin thread when I piece because it's less bulky in your seams. So I'm going to go ahead and thread up. And for my bobbin thread, I'm just using my regular pre-wound Quilting embroidery bobbin because that is, let me thread this. It's a 60 weight thread. So it's just a 60 weight thread and it stitches beautifully. So I used to be like, oh, I can't use that. That's for my embroidery, but it's just Quilting polyester thread and I love it. So let's go ahead and piece. The other thing I like to do is I like to do the auto pivot, or I'm sorry, the auto lift. This is going to auto lift the foot for me. Every time I take my foot off the foot control, I start with my needle down so I can abut my fabric to my needle. Hang on, let me get my filming arm in the right place. There, how's that better? Kind of. And I'm just going to grab my fabric in pairs. So I'm going to sew these two together, then these two, then these two, then these two, and then I'll come down here, I'll cut them apart, and then I'll sew the next grouping together, and that is how we'll do it. So here we go. I'm going to put right side to right side. Remember, the one on the left is going to be a little bit longer, and I don't pin, but if you're pinning, if I do pin, I like to use my, and sometimes I'll hold it right here because the belt isn't engaged yet, and then I'll let it go. So instead of doing like a locking stitch, that's how I will do it. And I take my time. I'm just going to go nice and slow. So a little bit off my fabric. It's going to lift the foot for me. I'm going to grab my next set, and I'm going to go ahead and turn this over. And I'm going to line it up. You guys aren't seeing this, but I'm lining it up. Making sure it's totally square in all directions, and then I'll let it catch. I hold my fabric before the belt engages, and And I'm just going to go ahead and piece all of these. So go for it. I know some people were waiting for the video, and I'm so sorry I didn't get it done sooner. But literally, I was like waiting for them to leave. Because my sewing room became one of the rooms for the kids. And so I couldn't get in here at night. And this morning I was like, they said they were going to leave at 9. So I was like, okay, they'll get up at 8. They'll get up at 8 o'clock. I don't know why that isn't matched. Maybe I miscut that, but I'm going to leave it because there'll be a little extra fabric on either edge. And they slept until like at 9 o'clock. I finally came in the room and I was like, okay, Mommy Mulligan needs to sew. You need to get up. I got him up. But what an exhausting week it was having all those kids. I need a vacation from their spring break. Take your time. I feel like the more prep, the more careful you are, the easier it is to put everything together in the end. I love the dual feed walking foot. This is my my foot of choice when I'm sewing, when I'm piecing. Anytime I can use it, I do. And I do sew a little bit off, and that's so I can just cut my pieces apart without them unraveling. Now, if you're sewing at a stitch length of a 3, it's going to come apart on the ends. But since I'm sewing mine at a stitch length of 1.8, that means my stitches are really tight. The downside of sewing at a really short length like that is if you do have to rip it out, it's a little bit harder. So see how tiny my stitches are? They're little. Okay, so normally I have a chain piece cutter that I'll use, but I don't know where it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut these apart. I'm going to have to grab another one. There's another one that we carry at this store, the Gypsy Quilter one, and you use, I'm going to press now. I'm going to press these. The Gypsy Quilter one at this store, you use your old blades. Here we go. So take the time, do it right. So I'm going to go ahead and give these a little press just to settle them. Relax the threads. Some people press it from both sides. I'm kind of lazy, so I go, oh my God, at least you're pressing one side. And I'm good with it. Okay, they say press to the dark, so put your light side down. This is my light side. I'm going to give it a little finger press. A little shot of spray with my best press because I like that nice and crisp. And then I'm just going to press it back. Okay. So pick your light or your dark. So obviously this one is my light. Put the light one down. You're going to fold this back on that seam. I like to give mine a little finger press. Best press. Oh, and you know, you should clapper. See, the difference with the clapper is the clapper keeps it nice and flat. This one, like when we compare the two, let's compare the two. Takes a little bit longer. I don't know if you can see that, but this one definitely is a little bit higher. This one's going to lay really, really flat. And you can just rest your clapper down in there. It takes the heat from the mat and traps it with the wood, and it just sets that seam. Okay. What's light? What's dark? Here we go. What do you think? We'll go that direction. And, you know, you don't always want to press like this depending on, sometimes you're doing some quilts and they'll have really specific instructions about how to press your seams. So when you sew them together, they're not all bulky on one side. I'm not an expert. I'm just somebody who has experienced that and been like, ooh, that doesn't look right. That doesn't feel right. That's bulky. Could I have done that better? What do you think? I'm going to go this as my light. It has been windy here. The jet stream has been in, did I already do that one? Full swing. I'll go orange. And remember, it's fabric. Fabric is not paper. Fabric is malleable. You're the boss. You can get it to do what you want. Okay, let's lay them out again. We're going to group them in case they're not in the right sets that they were before. So I'm just looking at my book right here. This one goes here. This one goes here. And this gets sewn to the end. And what's on the very beginning of this? It's this one. Okay, so I'm going to sew these two together. I usually line them up on the right-hand side, and then I'll stack them. So this one with this one, and then I know I'm going to sew those two together. And then this with this, and then this is still one lonely piece. And then on the bottom, I have these two, this and this. And then I have, I got these two, the plaid with the pink, and then the orange with the green. And I have this lonely piece too. So those are still lonely. So I'm going to sew these four together on this side, cut them apart, press them, and then we'll add the last ones on there. All right. Come on over. And if you feel like pinning, please pin. I use magic pins, magic applique pins, and or patchwork. I like the patchwork because they're short, and I like the fine or the extra fine because they just slip into your fabric so nicely. I wouldn't use quilting pins. Like, I didn't know the difference in the beginning. And then when I use, so you want to line it up here and line it up here. When I use the patchwork ones and the extra fine, I was like, oh my God, it made such a difference. I'm going to start with my needle down. I like to abut my fabric to my needle. If I'm using this foot, I like to just hold it and let it do a couple of stitches and then let it go, as long as the fabric isn't under the belt. If it's under the belt, just let it feed. Don't fight the feed dogs. You don't want to fight the feed dogs. Fighting feed dogs throws your machine out of time. But when it's not engaged on the top, I can just hold it there really nicely, and it just, you know, it doesn't go anywhere. Just right on the edge. And then it does like kind of like a little lock without me having to set the locking stitch, without me having to hit my reverse forward and back button. It's just a little trick that I do. It's not like something you'll find in the manual. It's the lazy girl. I should write the lazy girl's tricks to sewing. What you can get away with. I'm sure you guys have some things that you do. Okay, I'm going to going to do the next two. I had to move the sew along back because I haven't even really planned how we're going to be doing the borders. I'm sewing on my Martelli cutting table, which I love sewing on, but I really need to not just be sewing on it because I bought it to be a cutting table, but I just love sewing on it. I have it slightly tilted towards me. I put my machine back a little bit, so now I have this like little cut area right in front of me. And you know what? I'm going to sew these onto the ends right now, and then we'll press it all. So let's just make sure we pick the right end. Here's this end right here. I'm going to just look at my book and make sure I'm doing the right one. Yes, and I'm going to sew this on. Okay, so I'll pair that up. And then the other side is going to be a lime. So it's going to be this piece with gray dot. Okay, then we'll be done with all of this, and then we can do all our pressing and we'll add the borders. Pretty easy, easy peasy. Line everything up. You want to make sure it's lined up here as well as here, so it's not all crazy and askew. For me, I start with the needle, and honestly, I have no idea if that's even acceptable to do that, but that's what I do. And I find on my brother machines, they're so fantastic. You don't, if your needle is set to go needle down, that thread is not going to get sucked out. I don't really have many issues with the fabric getting buried down into the hole in the needle plate. But if you do, put on your straight stitch needle plate, and that's going to alleviate that. The straight stitch needle plate will just give it a little hole so that fabric doesn't get mushed down into the hole, the wider zigzag hole in your needle plate, and your pieces of fabric should just glide over. The other time you want to put your straight stitch needle plate on is put it on for free motion quilting, because it's going to alleviate some of that eyelashing, and instead of your stitches getting pulled to the sides when you're going around curves, it is going to keep it going down more in a straight row. Here we go. So let's go ahead and we're going to have to press these out. I'm going to look at the two. I'm going to count this as my lighter side. And I didn't even give it the little press to settle it. You know why? Because I forgot. And now I'm in the pressing mode. So it's okay. How about this one? What do you think's lighter? I'm going to go lime. What's next over here? I can feel it right here. Oop, what happened over here? This one. And was that it? Am I pressed? I'm short. What needs to go together now? 2 more pieces. All right, let's take a look. I'm like, these are too short. I thought I was done. Okay, this one starts with one of them. Oh, here, we got to press these too. These haven't been pressed. This is the blue that ends on the end, and I need the one that starts with, oh, this wasn't pressed either. Okay, I think I'm ready with the bottom one. The bottom one that starts with the brown sparkle, goes to the blue, and has the plaid. So I'm just looking at my book as I go. These two pieces need to get sewn together. Let me take those to the machine. And then I always put them together, and I put this on the left side of my machine. So I always know I'm sewing on the right side of that pair. And then this one starts like this, and it goes like this. All right, one more set of sewing, one more set of pressing, and then we'll put on the borders. And then I'm going to look at it and figure out if I need to trim it down before we go ahead and we sew it. And then I have to figure out what size we got to figure out what size batting and what hoop we're going to use. Good thing we're not starting. Oh, look at that. This is our original start time. It's 11 o'clock, and I would be freaking out. So I'm glad I have one more hour to figure it out before you and I get together. Okay, let it lock and then go. You can always set up the locking stitch for it to go forward and back, but I just like it to do just a couple of stitches. They say don't do a lot of sewing without there being some fabric between your feed dogs and your and the foot, because the feed dogs are diamond cut and they will just cut up and trash the bottom of your sewing feet. I just do a little bit, just a little bit. And that there is staying in place because I was just holding it, just resisting those, the feed dogs on the bottom, the tiniest bit, not where you're like really pushing and pulling against them. You don't want to do that. I was laughing because I sent a note to the gals that work at the shop the other day, and I totally just had a stream of consciousness. I was like asking them their opinion about some of the kits that we're doing. And I was just thinking, maybe I'm just like putting you inside my head right now. You guys are listening to my stream of consciousness. Last two, we'll go this way. My babies are gone. As much fun as I had with them, oh my goodness. It'll be nice not cooking for the whole camp. All right. There we go. This is our top row. Go ahead and check it, but if it's not, in the order and you messed up a little bit, that's okay. You do want the long ones on the end, but even if you don't have those on the end, you'll survive. If the long ones on the end is really the only important thing you have to remember, because you need that for the side seam, the side seams. So it's up to you. But look them over, make sure everything's sewn in place. Now that we have that done, we're going to sew our inner border. And you do have to pay attention to this. This is my bottom left. This is my bottom right. I'm going to grab my inner border right here, and I'm going to sew that on. Now I do have a little bit of a selvage on here. I'm going to make sure I can just cut that off. But before I cut it off, let's make sure I don't need it. Oh yeah, we have plenty. So I'm going to start with this a little bit above, and then I will cut it off. There is no right or wrong side to this. I'm just going to lay it down, sew it on. And then on the other one, so this is on I'm going to put this at my machine, this on the right-hand side. And then the other one is going to start with the blue. And this is going to go on the bottom. So I'm going to start with this on the right-hand side with the green. All right, I'm ready. So I'm going to sew it down this way. And this one I'm going to start with the brown sparkle. To the machine. I couldn't even walk in here. This room was filled with suitcases, skis, everything. And people. I got home last night and they were in here talking about one of them is going to be asking somebody to dance, and they were talking boy-girl stuff. I was like, oh, it's so cute. Okay, here we go. And I'm just going to lay it down as I go, making sure my edges are lined up. Don't be pulling your fabric, stretching it. I don't know about you guys, but I love piecing. This kind of stuff, I love. I love the embroidery too. Someday, I'm going to just do piece tops. Well, and embroidery. I'm never going to be able to give up the embroidery. I'm going to be like you guys. I'm going to be like, I am not doing that Kimberbell quilt. I have so many. And then I'm going to watch somebody doing it, and I'm going to be like, that is so cute. I need it. And I like to have busy hands. So I need something to do. And, you know, I think most of you I always say makers gotta make. If we're not making something, then our life is not complete. There's some people out there that have to be like Patrick. Oh my God. Patrick has to be active. I have to be active this way. I have to be creating something, making something. That's my entertainment. So when we go to sew this down, I can't decide if I'm going to just do clear blue tiles and lay it down on top. I'm going to have to look. Otherwise, maybe there'll be a tack down. I have to play around a little bit before we go live. It might just be a tack down on the left and the right. Because how this is intended is it is intended for you to do these strips separately and do those borders separately. But it's going to be so much easier to just do it all as one. And again, I'm just going to trim mine off later. Take your time, be precise. This is when you really want to take your time, right? Okay, I'm going to cut this off right now. So, my long edges. Other side. And again, I'm doing like, if you are stitching at a longer stitch length, that's going to just come unraveled, but I'm at a 1.8, so I'm just going to cut it off. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine, and it's going to get sewn in. I think that is an issue that Michelle sees, where their seams come apart because they're not locking their seams. It's the double whammy if you're not locking your seams and you are sewing it along stitch length. I'm going to be careful on that corner too. I'm not going to be pushing and pulling it too much. So let's go ahead and let's settle our seam. We're going to press the seam open. This is our inner border. I'm going to cut my batting and I'm going to be ready to go. Let's do this one and then we'll press them open. Settle that seam, relax it. You're so relaxed seam. And I am going to press it towards the inner border, okay? I'm going to do it this way. Start this side. I use, like right now I'm on my new favorite little portable table, my side table, and I love it because I can move it anywhere in my room. And anyways, I use a mat on top of a mat because this is just like a little cheapy plastic table. If you don't, guess what? It can melt. And a lot of times I have a mat on top of my cutting mat. I'm too lazy to like put it all away every single time and swap it out. So I use 2 wool mats because I find that it doesn't go through that. And if you're pressing and you're using Best Press or you're using water or whatever it is you're using, the moisture will turn to steam and it's going to go through those layers. And you're going to ruin whatever is underneath that is plastic. How do I know? Because I've ruined and warped my cutting mats. I love this. Because you can use this as a clapper and you have the pressing bar too. All right, this is done and ready to go. Look at the next one. And we can press on here. It will innately kind of spread it a little bit more. because it's like pushing that seam up, right? Whoop. That seam, I don't know if you can see the difference. I feel like it takes a little more prep, and I'm just doing a Kimberbell bench pillow. But if you could look at this seam and how flat and rolled over it is compared to over here. See the difference? So it's how much time and how much precision do you want to take? I should get 2 of these. And they also make a larger size. Is it like I forget what size it is. But this will be your ultimate pressing bar with the clapper. Because it's like pushing it up right into the iron. But sometimes I just don't want to take the time. But this is the difference. I don't know if you can see the difference. Yes. So pressing bar is, and a clapper, everything makes a difference. Okay. We are done with this. The next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out what size hoop I'm going to be using. I will be right back. Okay, my friends, I am planned. So I am done with the piecing. I will see you in a little bit, and we will do the quilting of the borders, and I'll have some measurements and dimensions for you. But what I can tell you right now, what I'm going to do, what I planned out, is I'm going to be using my 9.5 by 14 inch hoop. I cut my muslin to 16 inches. So I'm going to do one strip, and then I'm going to rehoop, and then I'm going to do the other strip. That should give me enough room to run it down on the other side. You could cut it a little bit bigger if you want a little more room, but I think that's going to be plenty. I did 16 inches wide by width of fabric, which I'm using 90 inch. So it's 16 inches by 90 inch of muslin. I'm not going to need that much, but that's what I'm cut for. I cut my batting strip to 6.5 inches. You can see it right here. I think I could have gotten away with 6 inches, but 6 inches, and I have another strip to do the other side. And then I'm going back and forth with the size of the design I'm going to use. I'm either going to use the 1 inch by 12 inch or the 1 inch by 14 inch. And then for the little strip, and then for this strip, I'm going to be using the 3 by 12 or the 3 by 14. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. I should probably make it like, here you go, so you know what I'm talking about. If you don't have these hoop sizes, you will just do them one at a time in your smaller size hoop, batting, muslin, and these are your designs, okay? So is that a little bit better? Make a little more sense? And I've never done this before. I mean, I've never done this particular one, but this is what I'm going to be doing. Might be great, might not be great. You might just want to watch and see if you want to do it. I will see you for our borders in just a little bit. Bye.